Welcome back to my channel. My name is Natalie, and today I'm doing a book review of all the books I read in 2022. So I have 10 books in total. These are all of it here, and it's not a lot because I just started getting into reading a year ago, and it takes me like a month or more to read a book. So yeah, we're gonna work on that in this new year, but let's get into it.
Baby, you don't know what you do to me. Between me and you, I feel like chemistry. I won't let no one come in.
So I'm gonna go from worst to best in my opinion, and in the worst is We Were Liars. And don't get me wrong, it's not worst as in I would never read it, but it was just not my favorite. This book is about a girl who has like a summer vacation home with all her family. They all have like a little island, I think, and they all have like their own house, and they go every summer with her cousins, and yeah, it's a good time. But one summer something happens and she can't remember it, and nobody wants to tell her mom, nobody. And then once she feels better, she goes back to the summer home, and she starts to uncover like what did happen. And when I tell you the ending was like, what? Like, it was a very big plot twist. I was not expecting it at all. And I don't like reading about books before starting, so I suggest you don't read anything about this because I don't want you to like ruin the plot twist for yourself. But yeah, I gave this book 4 stars. It was kind of very slow at the beginning, but then it picked up and the ending was great. But yeah, it ended up being the worst out of all the books I've read, but I still highly recommend. Okay, the next book is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Okay, so this book is about a famous actress who has had 7 husbands, and she goes to a journalist to basically have her write her life story. And so it goes through each of her husbands and like what was happening around that time of her life. And at the end, she ends up like not having anyone in her life, and so she just wants to like end her life by telling the truth about what like was really happening in her life, since you know actors don't like to reveal the bad truths. This book was like really slow for me. Like I think like 200 pages in is when it started to get good, and then I finished it that night. I cried a little bit. There was like an unexpected like plot twist, but it just didn't give for me. Like I was expecting more because this was highly like favored on TikTok and whatever. So I was expecting more, but it just wasn't my favorite. But it was still a really good book. Like I cried, and like it made me like look at love a little differently. But yeah, I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, next book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and this is by Mark Manson. And this is basically exactly what the title says. It like shows you how to stop giving a fuck. And you know, I took notes while I like highlighted like my favorite quotes. Let me read a few for you. Because here's a sneaky truth about life. There's no such thing as not giving a fuck. You must give a fuck about something. It's part of our biology to always care about something, and therefore to always give a fuck. The question then is, what do we give a fuck about? What are we choosing to give a fuck about? And how can we not give a fuck about what ultimately does not matter? So that's the whole like synopsis of the book. It like shows you how to choose intentionally what to give a fuck about, and I actually really liked it. It's just, I had it lower than the other books just because fiction is more interesting to me. Like, it's just like I read it quicker and it's more interesting. But I do really like self-help books. Like, that comes top second. Let me read another one. Okay, I also like this one because people are always saying that you gotta find yourself, and he has a different take on it. He says, I say don't find yourself. I say never know who you are, because that's what keeps you striving and discovering, and it forces you to remain humble in your judgments and accepting of the differences in others. That was a good one. Okay, so yeah, this was the only self-help book that I read so far. I'm actually reading one right now, but I haven't finished it yet, so I'm not gonna add it into this video, but it's actually really good. So in another video I'll talk about it. But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars as well. I didn't give anything under a 4, but yeah, I recommend this one. All right, next one is the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. The third one I lent to my cousin, which is the first book of the series. Oh, let me mute this. This one is the Good Girls Guide to Murder, and then it goes Good Girl, Bad Blood, and then As Good as Dead. Okay, so in the first book, she's doing like a senior project for her school, and she decides to do it on a murder that happened a few years back in her town, and she doesn't think who they pinned it on is actually who the murderer was. So she starts to like look into it, and she finds out that she was right, and she starts getting like death threats and like putting herself and her family in danger. And yeah, I actually really liked it. I gave it a 4.5. Then the second one of the series was Good Girl, Bad Blood. I took the cover off because it broke. And this one did not give. I gave this one a 3.5. So I lied. I did give something lower than a 4. But the second book is just... So in this one, her friend's brother goes missing, and he reaches out to her since he knows that she's like good at uncovering murderers or whatever. She ends up looking into it, ends up finding him, and it all ends up like being connected somehow to like the first book. But yeah, it wasn't good. Like it didn't give as good as the first book. But since I had already started the series, I wanted to just finish it. So I read the last book, and it wasn't as good as the first one, but it was definitely better than the second book. And in this one, instead of her looking for other people, she's looking not necessarily for herself, but she starts getting death threats and like someone's after her. And so she goes to the police, but of course they don't do anything about it. So she ends up like trying to uncover who that person is who's like after her, and she does end up finding out and whatever. And yeah, this was actually a really good book. It was kind of like unsettling because it's like scary to have like someone after you, and it like goes over like PTSD from like her other situations. And yeah, this one I gave I gave it a 4 out of 5. So yeah, that was the Good Girls Guide to Murder series. Overall, it was like a 4. But yeah, and then the rest, and no surprise, is Colleen books. I read 4 of her books, and yeah, let's get into those. So the least one that I liked was Verity. This one is about an author who gets contacted by a publishing company, I believe, asking her to finish a series of another author, very well-known author, who can't finish her book. And so yeah, they contract her to finish the book. And so she ends up accepting it, and she moves in with the husband of the author, because all her notes of the books are in the lady's office. And so she like stays in their room, not with him, but obviously, but she starts reading all the notes and whatever, and she ends up finding an autobiography from the author that was never published. And so she starts reading that as she's like working on the last book, and she ends up like finding out like a lot of disturbing, like when I tell you disturbing secrets. And it was very unsettling. Like this book, I had to take pauses, like breaks, because it was just a lot. Like when I tell you it was disturbing, it was disturbing. But yeah, I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good. Like Kali never misses, like never. But it just happened to be the least one that I liked because TikTok kind of spoiled it. And I don't want to say why, because I don't want to spoil it for you either. But it's just, I saw the ending coming. I saw it coming because, let me not say nothing, but it was very predictable, the ending. So yeah, that's why I rated it last out of all her books. Okay, next is Ugly Love. So Ugly Love is about a girl who moves in with her brother and ends up meeting one of his friends, and she like thinks he's cute or whatever, but he like right away tells her that he doesn't want anything, like nothing, and he like hasn't like talked to, did anything with a girl. I think it was years, like 7 years, I don't know, but it was a very long time. And she ends up being the first girl to like that he fucks. And so they start off as like friends and benefits, but it like gets complicated, but he doesn't like want a relationship, but she like starts to. And it's just interesting because I feel like a lot of people go through this, I myself included. So yeah, I think this is a really good book. I cried like in front of my whole family, like sobbed at the ending, sobbed. It's like so good. Like I love this book. Read it, bro, read it. It's gonna hit home. At least it did for me. All right, next. It Ends With Us. This was literally everyone's favorite, and it was for me, although I have another one that goes above this one. It Ends With Us is about this girl named Lily who moves to Boston after like having a hard life, and she just wanted to like restart. And once, I think it was like the first day she gets there, maybe not, but she ends up meeting this guy named Ryle, and he's like a surgeon, has a lot of money, has like that, not bad boy, but like he like, what's the word, he like doesn't give in to women, you know, that kind of vibe. But he ends up giving in to her, and they have a little relationship. It's literally like, it's like an amazing love story. And then something happens, and it literally broke my heart. Like I was rooting for him so bad. Like he was the one until that happened. But this was a really good book. And then I think during their breakup, she starts looking through her old journals, and then it starts talking about her first love. And yeah, so we start learning about Atlas, her first love, and their story, which was also like, it was beautiful, but it was like they were young, and like it was hard because he was going through a lot. And yeah, it didn't end up being the one for right now, but he ends up coming back. and so she's like torn between the two, and this is why everybody's like, are you Team Ryo or Team Atlas? And I really want to be Team Ryo, but I just can't. Like, I just can't. So Team Atlas all the way, the good guy, whatever. But yeah, and they have a second book. It Starts With Us. I haven't read that one yet. I heard that it's not that good, but I'm gonna still read it. So yeah, stay tuned for that review. And then number one, drumroll please, November 9th. So November 9th is about a girl who is about to move across the country, and she goes to a diner, I believe, or some type of restaurant, and she meets this guy. And they have like a really good connection, like off the bat, like fell in love first sight. But she's about to move across the country, so they obviously like can't really start a relationship based off of that. So they decide to meet in exactly 1 year. This was November 9th. And just like see how life goes. And so they do, and they end up doing that for like a few years, and like something always happens, like something always gets in the way. But I think this one was my favorite because the plot twist I did not see coming at all. The other ones are all very predictable, or like, you know, you can see it coming, but this one I did not see coming. Like, the plot twist is insane, and it was a really good book, and it made me cry. Of course, I cried with all Colleen books, but yeah, I think this was my favorite. It's just like interesting to like see them come together, and how it's only a 1 day out of the year, but they end up like building such a firm relationship off of that. And so yeah, this was my all-time favorite book of the year. Highly recommend. I actually started a book club, and I'm gonna we're doing like a Yankee swap, and I'm gonna do this book because it was just that good. Just that good. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Let me know which one was your favorite if you read these. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.